Lay. Sir. Yeah. Yeah.
Kane is in the building.
Yeah. Already the show goes on all night. Till the morning we dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up, the show goes on. Alright, already the show goes on all night. Till the morning we dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up, the show goes on. Have you ever had the feeling that you was being had? Don't that shit that make you mad? They treat you like a slave, put chains all on your soul and put whips up on your back. They be lying through they teeth, hope you slip up off your path. I don't switch up, I just laugh, put my kicks up on they desk, unaffected by they.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Overseas Famous Podcast. Tonight, talking with Ronnie McCollum, coach in Belgium, longtime overseas basketball player. I think this is the first coach we're talking to, so this should be fun. I know we talked to Trevor, who did a stint as a coach, but Ronnie is a long-term coach, has been doing it for a few years overseas. So I think it's cool to get his coaching perspective as well, as apparently an airplane is about to crash into my living room right now. How's everyone doing?
Good, bro.
Wow. Do you hear that?
I do not hear it.
Oh.
It's great living under that Philadelphia skyline, bro.
Seriously. I was like, wow, that's coming in hot. Coming in hot.
Good to have Cam on.
Yeah. Got the whole team here today, whenever you listen.
Our screen is full, with all the pictures.
It really is. And then we'll put Ronnie right in the middle, like the Brady Bunch. Like he'll be Alice that just pops up.
I like it when we kind of ambush people. It's like, hey, would you like to be on the podcast? And like we all fucking show up, and it's like,
yeah,
hey, what's up?
And I feel like because we're gonna bring Ronnie in, we're already started the show. Sometimes we've been getting good at bringing the guests in beforehand, talking to them a little bit. We're rolling with Ronnie's gonna jump straight in. Now we can do editing and stuff, but I think it's more natural to kind of have Ronnie jump in, and all of a sudden there's just a bunch of people there just staring at him. You're like, what the fuck?
You guys ever notice how you know what season it is by what Kevin's wearing? Like one day we're gonna look back and be like, oh, it must have been summer or spring. Yeah. Well, here comes Kevin with his tattoos out, sun's out,
sun's out, guns out.
You need a douchebag jar for Kevin.
Oh yeah, I'm totally. See, I'm like,
you wear a tank. It's like, put a quarter in there. Come on.
I'm like, and I feel like the tank tops have gotten a real bad rap lately. I played basketball. All we did was wear tank tops, and then people are like, I retire, and they're like, by the way, tank tops are for douchebags, and I'm like, well. All I wore were tank tops, and then I would leave. Like, it was just the only thing I wore. It was the thing I wore more than anything else. And now people are like, if you're a douchebag if you wear a tank top. I'm like, well, I'm not a douchebag. I mean, I could be, but I'm not in this specific instance just for me wearing a tank top.
Cam, do you own any tank tops?
I think I have a couple, but I never wear them.
And we're going to start doing curls. Those tank tops are coming out in late summer.
You're going to have to come back to train us all, dude, because I'm not putting a tank top on. I'm lifting for like a half a year.
I especially I'm like really big into, it's like we talked about this before in the podcast, sleeveless summers. So once it hits above that 80-degree mark, like 85, there's just too much. Like I'm a big guy. I sweat a lot. I get hot very easily. So when I'm rocking t-shirts in summer and everything's just getting sweaty and it's like swampy and gross, like why can't I just rock a tank top? I'm cooler, like not, mentally, but like physically I'm cooler. And it just feels like it's the better choice for me.
Specify that.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm not saying I'm cool. So I go real deep into the tank top game. So I'm just always trying to find good tank tops because I know I'm going to wear them. So I'm like real big. I have a ton of wrestling tank tops, which I'm rocking tonight, the NWO.
When you rolled up with that, dude, I felt so nostalgic.
Yeah.
New World Order, man. That was like when WWF split.
Yeah.
NWA, right, the Wolfpack, and then the NWO, and you had like half the wrestlers on one, half the other. I don't even know, like Cam, like we didn't even talk about this in pre-production. Do you watch wrestling?
I used to a couple of years ago. I wasn't obviously there for that, but like I'm more knowledgeable than the average person, I'd say.
Were you like part of
it's like too hard to watch nowadays though.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm not into it right now, but were you into like the John Cena era?
Yeah. Back when I was a kid, when it was like Cena, right when The Rock was kind of coming back, CM, that kind of era. It was kind of decent back then, but nowadays it's like, one guy's out there and then like 4 people run out and beat the shit out of him, and it's like what's even the point of watching this?
Did you watch wrestling?
Yeah. Not as much anymore. I just watched the latest WrestleMania, I want to say. I just feel like the skits are getting too long. Like, it's too much of like, okay, we get the storyline. It's kind of like that comic book-esque kind, and it's just like, beat the shit out of each other, man. Like, that's what I'm for. Like, not with the creepy puppets and, like, just whose Playhouse was it? I can't.
Pee-wee's. Oh, are we talking about like wrestling?
Yeah, like it was one skit. I don't know. All I know is John Cena is delicious, and I love it.
Wait, is it Bray Wyatt? Is that like I feel like his act?
One of those, that the reference.
Yeah, and I turned it on recently, and or like not, I guess like a year ago, and he was like wearing one of those like freaky masks, and it looked legitimately was like, this is scary. And there's like a girl who's apparently possessed by him. I'm like, all right, like it's like it was really intense, and it just became like this girl was possessed, and then the other guy was trying to help her. I was like, this is freaking weird, but I was like intrigued. But it was just, I feel like you got to go back to my era of wrestling was like John was saying, like that NWO really started it for me, the WCW, NWO, and then the WCW started fading, and then you had, like, I watched it all growing up. The Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, all those guys, like I had the wrestling figures, and then you kind of went into the NWO era, and then that's when like DX started coming up, and WWF like started taking over, and they had Stone Cold. That was the absolute shit. Like that was my heyday. Like I have an NWO shirt. I have a Austin 316. I do have multiple Kevin Owens shirts because there's a wrestler named Kevin Owens. And at first I was like real disrespected by it because people like, it was like took all my thunder, like whatever remaining thunder I had. Like, God damn it, I worked so hard. I'm Kevin Owens. Like you Google me, like people would be like, oh, I Googled you and look, there's Kevin Owens and it's me. And then people Google me now and it's like they have to fucking traipse through 10,000 different search engines to find me and not this jag off. Yeah, like
there can only be one. So if they can get like Logan Paul and like his douchebag ass to like fight Mayweather, we should start a social media campaign for you and the other Kevin Owens to wrestle. We'll call it KO Squared. It'll be a fabulous journey. I really think
that would be crazy. I feel like, I'd really have to
see that.
Listen, I have like my tank top game is good, but I need to, if I'm like popping in the ring as like a wrestler, I need to really up my, like I'm good for human form, but like wrestling guys, like those guys are huge. It's like I watch all the biographies, the Shawn Michaels, like it's obsessed, and I'm like, these guys are huge.
Is that his stage name or is that his actual name?
No, his name's like Kevin something else.
He really just stole your name.
Stole my name.
Like,
and
it's not even his real name.
This
he Googled you and was like, oh, I'm stealing this.
That's what Michaela, that's where the campaign needs to come, because I feel like it was like KO. He's like, oh, I want to do KO. And he typed in like Kevin O, and my name might have come up. I mean, there's like some singer from the 70s, and then there's some D-bag gamer who has it, but like he was gaming when like Nintendo was still a thing. Like, I just know these because all my friends who make fun of me were just like, anything with Kevin Owens, they would send me and be like, is this you? And I'd be like, no. But that's like where it is. So I think we need to really dive in onto what exactly is happening with the Kevin Owens name. Like, if it actually was stolen or if this is just like absolute nonsense.
Get a hold of his publicist.
Yeah, get a hold. Did you steal my name? No, he's not going to admit it. Hi, Kevin Owens, the basketball player, is really pissed and wants to know if you stole my name. Like, click.
In there, you know, we'll wire him up. You know,
Yeah. But people don't even answer the phone anymore. It'll just be an email for him. Delete. Just like, return to sender. All right, do you want to get Ronnie in here? We're fucking talking about wrestling for like 20 minutes. And Ronnie's just like sitting in Belgium about to fall asleep.
Like these assholes.
Yeah, like I thought this is ridiculous.
The episode would be like, what the fuck were they doing while I was waiting?
He's gonna be so mad. That's so true. I didn't even think about that. Like, Ronnie, how are you?
I'm great. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. How are you doing?
Everything's well. By yourself?
Everything's good. Everything's great. It's awesome to have you on the show. I know we talked a while back and we were just playing, Twitter tag and everything like that. But we're excited to have you on. This is your first overseas coach who has joined us on Overseas Famous. We've had players. We've had agents. This is your first coach, so we're super psyched to have you. But you did play, obviously. But the current coach, I think this is gonna be a lot of fun.
That's interesting. That puts a lot of pressure on me to do well.
Look, just take a look at the four of us. There's no pressure here. It's just, we're just rocking and rolling. So, Ronnie, again, super psyched to have you. Coaching overseas, obviously, there's such a difference between overseas basketball and the NBA, and I'm sure you're still watching and during the playoffs and things like that. But how would you compare that coaching from overseas to, say, being a coach in America?
Well, the obvious thing is, the language barrier. That's the biggest issue. I've been in Belgium for about 15 years and my Dutch is still terrible. My French is worse than that. And, just the language barrier to get over things. Here from, a management standpoint, they want things to happen instantaneously. And that you played overseas, and we played, in the early days where you can only have, one or two foreigners on a team. And if you didn't play well after 2 games, they just sent you home. And it's the same way, they want to win every game. If there's a bad loss, they're super impulsive, and they become very emotional. And, you have to explain to them like it's a process, it's a long season. But, that's the biggest difference. At least in America, you can, pretty much coach out your contract and they're patient with you and they explain what they're looking for from the beginning. And here is just like, hey, go fight a war with a water gun, win, even though you have the lowest budget in the league, and figure it out pretty much.
It's crazy because even that language barrier, it becomes such a bonding factor for for the Americans. I know everywhere I went where the language was really tough, that was our biggest thing. It was the only person you could talk to. You hung out a lot more. Do you find that it's difficult because you have guys coming over every year? And, overseas basketball, it's like a flip of a switch. You're not getting the job done. You got to go. But you still kind of form that bond with those guys. Is that difficult to kind of have that bond because you're both American and you're able to talk to each other and you build those connections, but then have to be like, oh, shit, this might not be working?
Right. Yeah. It becomes very difficult at times because, everything you're trying to build chemistry and camaraderie, super quick. And, sometimes guys just don't work out or they get a better offer somewhere else. So you're losing possibly your best player and you're bringing somebody else in and you just got to, insert them in the lineup and keep the train rolling, so to speak. So it becomes very difficult to build chemistry, and getting guys to really buy in because you and I both know when you go to a place, you don't know anything about the place or the people, You just only go off what your agent tells you. And every agent is telling their player, get numbers. Don't worry about it. I'm going to get you in a better league. So
Yep.
you try to explain that to 6, because we can have 6 Americans here in Belgium. Explaining that to 6 guys to sacrifice and be unselfish is very, very difficult.
We had a guy on Tim Gears or Tim Gears, and he was so phenomenal when he talked about it, because he was the first guy that when he talked about his ability to, they're going to the playoffs and they have this big win, and he was so, psyched up. And I think that is something that the guy, you get very excited when you're winning, you're pumped. But at the same time, like you said, there's that balance, because you're thinking about the team, but at the same time, your career is 10, 12, 15 years. And you're also thinking about where's my next contract coming from? How are you going to get this? And it's a delicate balance for guys.
Absolutely. And, and then you add in the aspect of, you might not be paid on time, right? So you're trying to put out multiple fires at one time. You're trying to get a player to show up for morning practice and get him to go hard and be unselfish. And then he hits you with, well, coach, my paycheck is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks late. How do you explain that? How do you motivate a guy to practice when his money is late? Or, the guy doesn't have internet, or, he can only drive an automatic. You're putting out so many different things that you don't have to worry about in any other situation or in America. Just so many things that you have to think about, and, my wife has been a great help for me with coaches, girlfriends and wives. They become pregnant over here. What OBGYN can you trust? And, things that you never think about that you would have to deal with as a coach, but you have to put out multiple fires all the time.
And I'm sure all of that became more difficult with COVID, of course.
Absolutely. And with my team this year, we basically started training camp 3 different times. We came in, we had 3 days of practice. They shut us down for 2 weeks. We started again. We got shut down for a month and we started up again. We played 2 games and they shut us down for a couple of months, and you have to start this all over again. And then, you have those difficult conversations with your management and your players, they might not pay you for this month because you haven't played a game and haven't practiced. So you run into that situation, and coaches and players come to you and say, coach, should I leave? My agent found me something else. Should I go? And you have to be honest with players, okay, if you're going to get paid and they're playing and we're not, you just have to go. And those are very, very difficult conversations to have.
This is like being, and I know a lot of coaches talk about this, but being an overseas coach, I feel like you're going through every single stage of parenthood. Like, you're going from the stage where they're infants and you have to, I need to make sure that they're getting this and this and this. And then you're going to that high school where they're going off to it's like you are going through every stage of parenthood within 8 to 10 months every single year. That's wild. And it really takes a special, incredible person to really be able to, be a good overseas coach, especially as an American.
Absolutely. And we're judged at a different standard. I mean, you played overseas, you understand how that works. Local guys can be lazy and, not perform, and we can't do that. We can't have a bad day no matter if we're sick or whatever. And coaches are held at a different standard too, and when you don't win, it's, they don't understand because you only speak English, right? It is always constantly those things. And, it's very, very difficult at times. And like you said, you just have to wear so many hats and put out so many fires. And, and in the middle of the year, a team might come to you and say, you know what, we're just going to strictly develop for the rest of the year. We're going to send our foreigners, let our foreigners go, and figure it out as you go. Now you're playing with 2 teenagers out there against grown men, and you're like, how do we manage this? And they're still upset when you lose. And I'm thinking, if you want me to develop, but you want me to win, those things don't work together. I have to do one or the other. I have to develop or we win. We can't do both at the same time. So, getting that point across, and, like I said about them becoming emotional, and here too, just because a sponsor comes in, the sponsor thinks just because I give money, I have a voice, player personnel and style of play and, all those things. And, most people who never played basketball don't understand basketball. They don't know the difference between a flare screen and a screen door. So you're trying to explain to them, what your job is entail, and they have no clue what you're talking about. And they just go, well, you're not winning. Well, I'm just trying to explain to you why we're not winning, but they don't hear it that way.
Wow, that's wild. I never even thought that the sponsors would even play, they would have that input. And I mean, now that you say, I think it's the first time I played for a long time, and it's the first time I've ever actually thought about that the sponsors have such a stake in the team that they're going to start coming to meetings and talking to you and saying like, hey, what about this guy? What about this guy? That's a hell of a responsibility. You are really putting out so many fires.
Absolutely. I've even had a conversation with a board of a team that I previously coached. It was a local player. So I thought they were going to be happy. He was actually starting in front of an American. And the board comes to me and says, well, you can't do that. And I'm really confused. I'm like, what do you mean I can't do that? Yeah, because if he plays too well, when it's contract time, he's going to ask for too much money and we can't keep him. And I'm thinking, well, what do we do about this situation? Well, you can only play him 18 minutes. I'm like, what kind of trivial number is that? Yeah, that's what he deserves because all the other Belgians in the league centers are playing 18 minutes a game. And of course, being the stubborn knucklehead that I am, the next game we had, the guy played 35 minutes just to prove that you don't tell me how much a guy can play, and that didn't go well with management, of course, but I'm just trying to explain to them, like, it sets a bad example for our team. If he's our hardest worker, he never complains, and I put him on the bench just because an American is behind him, or you just want to keep him for a lower price.
Do you start to get that feeling like, like you don't even feel like the coach at points? Like you don't feel like you're the one making decisions. It's kind of like everyone like in your ear telling you what to do.
Absolutely. And, like I said earlier about trying to explain to people who don't understand basketball is when you talk about analytics. And, previous team I coach, he comes to me, he goes, hey, we're giving up 81 points a game. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. He goes, that's the most in the league. And I said, you're right. I said, but we average 14 more possessions per game than all the other teams in our league. And he goes, well, what does that mean? And, without knowing it, I'm like, yeah, well, if we have more possessions, the other team has the equal amount of possessions. So we score more, they score more. And, you try to explain to him points per possession, defensive field goal percentage. And it was like, you're speaking Greek to this guy, and he just didn't understand it. And he left the meeting basically saying, well, we give up 81 points a game, right? There's no reaching people like that. But you still have to work with these people on a daily basis.
Jeez. I just feel like one of the more difficult things that you must deal with, besides everything else, you have that kind of connection with the Americans, obviously. How difficult is it to make those same connections, like you're saying, especially when you're handcuffed in many circumstances? But how difficult is it for those foreign players and you to kind of make that connection? Are they ever looking at you like, oh, well, screw him, he's playing the Americans and we're here and we're working hard? Do you ever get that backlash from the actual local players?
At times you do get that, and they become, very standoffish, when you try to reach them, and, the culture is different in every place you go. When you try to have a one-on-one conversation with a guy, and it can be totally not about basketball, and they become very defensive, like, coach is talking to me. I've never had a coach talk to me. What did I do wrong? Like, you didn't do anything wrong. We're trying to build a bond here. I'm trying to find out who you are as a person, and you can see me as a person, and when I was a player, one of my last years playing, we had 4 Americans on the team that year, and I had become a Belgian citizen at the time, and all of us rode in a car together to a team event, and all the local players were just like pissed at us. Like, how dare do all the Americans ride in the one car together? I'm like, we speak the same language. We come from the same culture, Now, we didn't say anything to them when, 4 Belgians rode in the car together, but only when it came to us, it was a problem.
It's so true. When you're saying that, there are so many times where, as an import, you really got the other guys were kind of looking at you a little differently. They knew that you got paid a lot more than they did. And there was like a lot of jealousy. And I feel like that, on top of, like you said, all of your other hats, handling a team where now you're dealing with cross-culture jealousy because, the star players are the Americans, but they're coming into, this guy grew up down the road, and he's like, well, shit, I've been doing this my whole life. This guy just comes in, and especially year after year, there's a whole new crop of guys coming in and just taking your spot.
Right. And the smallest things become huge, especially when you don't address it. And, you know, when I was a younger coach, you know, you were thinking, okay, it'll just work itself out. And it doesn't happen that way. And, you know, guys become jealous over, you know, the size of the car you get. You know, the American got a station wagon and I only get the 2-door. Well, he's got a wife and kids. Why would you want the station wagon? Like, you have to explain these things to these guys. Well, why does he have the 3-bedroom apartment? Because he has the wife and the kids. You're by yourself. You get the 1-bedroom. Like, little things like that are, you know, they become huge over a point when you don't explain it well. You know, and this is, everything blows up. Where the guys sit on the bus, where they sit for team meals, the amount of gear that guys get. You know, those kind of things really irritate a lot of people. You know, why is the media interviewing, you know, the foreign guy? He doesn't even speak the language. You know, those kind of things, that really irritates guys.
That's crazy. I remember one time playing when I was in Estonia, and all the Estonian guys kept on going to this one store. Like there was like a Nike store, and they would go there, and the team would, you know, they were sponsored, and they would go and just pick out a bunch of stuff. And I just remember being like, oh shit, like what am I? Like, I can't get access. So I taught the other Americans, they're like, oh, let's go. And we all went in. They're like, okay. And then we went, and they reluctantly gave us stuff. But that was like opposite jealousy, because I remember being like, this isn't fair. Like, why I don't get any gear? But I mean, at the same time, we were probably getting paid like 3 times what they were. Kind of a dick move on my part, but I still was like, let me see if we can pull. And I feel like that when you're overseas, it almost becomes like a game sometimes to be like, I wonder if we can get a free meal here. I wonder if I can get this here, because you're just you're like far away from everything. You're just trying to test the limits. You're like a middle schooler, just like, if I do this, I wonder what's going to happen. So it's wild.
No, because I'm sorry. I mean, I played in China, and this was in 2001, 2002 season. And, you know, then it was, you know, 2 foreigners. You couldn't play at the same time. So, you know, my playing time was dictated based on the other team's foreigner. If the other team played a guard, I played. Yep. If, you know, Yao Ming or Ming Batir or Wang Zhizhi was in, I didn't play that night. You know, I might play 1 quarter. You know, and it became the situation where, you know, when you're a rookie, you don't know those things, how to handle it professionally. You know, like, I'm fussing, I'm complaining about playing time. And then, you know, instead of someone, you know, pulling me off to the side and says, you know what, you make 5 times what the other guys are making. Like, this is a great living for you. Just, you know, just suck it up and play. And, you know, and we played Roy Tarpley's team when he was in Beijing. And Roy was like, listen, he said, don't worry about that, young fella. He said, just make sure that you get paid and take care of those things. And as a coach, you know, especially when you have an American rookie, you do more explaining to him about being a professional than you do about X's and O's.
Yeah.
Like, take care of yourself, you know, do the right thing, show up on time, handle yourself, don't complain, you know, make a career out of this, think long term. And those are most of the conversations that you have, because I wish when I was a rookie, someone would have pulled me to the side and explained that to me, you know, on a daily basis, instead of waiting on Roy Tarpley to basically tell me those things.
Yeah, the older veteran presence is so huge. I remember my first year in the D League, I had Corey Alexander and Mikey Moore. That was my first year out of college, and they pulled me aside and they were teaching me things. It was funny because Batir, he was in the D League, and I don't think I've ever, it was like the first time, you know, I'm 6'10". Yeah, I've played against big guys, but I've kind of been, you know, in college, I went to Monmouth, smaller school. I was kind of like the bigger guy. I wasn't the biggest on my team, but I still was kind of like a power forward. Batir, I remember going up and just like trying, you know, like checking him in the lane, and it was like hitting a rock. I remember being like hitting and just being like, oh shit. Like, it was like an immediate, like, this is the real deal, because he was so big and he was so strong, and he was like solid. There was like all solid muscle. Like, and I just hit him, and it was like, I remember hurting my elbow, and it was like one of those things you have to pretend to be tough. But at that point, my brain, I was like, oh shit.
Right. And that's the reaction I had when I played against Yao Ming. When you hear about, a lot of foreign guys, you go up to him and you're like, okay, he's really not that big, or he's really not that good. And it was the complete opposite when I played against Yao Ming. I'm like, okay, he's really that big and he's really that good. And that was one guy you're like, okay, he's really, really going to be a really good player. So, yeah, I understand what you mean. Like, oh, you're in for a dogfight that night, pretty much.
The going into, the imports pushing the limits, have you had to deal with things as a coach? Because, as a player, I did stupid shit. And I don't know if I was, I always knew how far I could push it to where it would be like, all right, if I do this, or if I go out this night or do that, like I could push to the point where they're like, yo, I don't care what you're doing on the court. You can't be doing crazy stuff. So I always knew not to ever go, too far. Have you ever had the guy on your team as a coach just kind of go too far and you're like, come on, dude? Like, because again, you're the parent of a lot of these imports.
Right. Most of the things that we deal with basically, game situation where they get so angry at themselves and they become so selfish, about their own play. They throw water bottles or they kick a chair, they get a technical, and I'm thinking, you know what, you're not helping the team right now, and at practice, it can get a little bit physical, because you're around each other more than you are your families, right? You're practicing twice a day, 5 days a week. You get irritated. You have to go against the same guy, all week in practice. And, they get into a little pushing match and a couple of punches have been thrown, but nothing too crazy. Now, the craziest thing I will say off the court about players is one player, he introduced me to 2 different girls as his girlfriend. And I was like, this is something I'm not going to get involved in. I'm like, and we had to make I had to make an announcement to the team, like, listen, you introduced me to one girl, right? Because I don't want to get you in trouble by calling the girl the wrong name, right? Yep. So just introduce me to one girl, your main girl. Just keep it at that. And if she's not your main girl, don't introduce me to me. I don't want to get involved in that, that kind of thing. Because, we had a player, the same player. We ended up having to let him go because, he was frustrated with his role, and he had come from a country where he was averaging like 25 points a game, and this is a higher level for him, and he wasn't happy. And I said, okay, you know what? You need to go where you can be the man on the team. I said, no problem for me. And come to find out, 2 or 3 days after he left, one of the girls he introduced me to, she called me. She goes, where is he? I was like, he went back to America. What do you mean, where is he? Yeah, he still has all his stuff at my house. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, he was living with you. She was like, yeah, he was living with me. I'm like, well, I'm sorry to tell you he's gone. And then literally not 5 minutes later, the other girl calls. She says the exact same story. I'm like, oh my gosh. So basically he left Belgium, left all his stuff here at 2 different girls' houses. That's the wildest thing as a coach I had to deal with.
I feel like that, what would be the, you're in a situation where you have these 2 girls, you just want to be gone. So you're just kind of like, I can buy new shit. I'm heading out of here. Like, right. Stuff, because I made enough where I can go and re-up, but I don't feel like dealing with this drama right now. I'm out.
and the fact that he didn't tell either one of them was so strange to me. Like, I'm like, it's not 20 years ago. People can find you wherever you are now. Social media is everywhere. They'll find you.
Michaela's definitely happy with this conversation. Michaela's like, oh, good.
Yeah. Everyone call him the angry feminist. Blah blah blah. That's crazy.
That is crazy. That's one of the better stories.
He was catfishing them.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Essentially.
Mm-hmm.
How do you not know? Like, if you're living with both of them, how do you not know?
I feel like there's a good language barrier thing. You got it.
How did the girls get your phone number? Like, are you used as like an emergency contact for like families or anything? Or like, how did they get your info?
No, the strange thing is that every coach in Belgium, their cell phone and office number is on the website. So if you wanted to call me, basically you just go to our team website and you have my cell number. Like, it's literally on the website. So they knew my number from the website, and they just called me up and like, where is he?
That's wild. Have you ever gotten like angry fans or anything calling just because your cell phone's like on there? Have you ever had like weird calls and been like, guys, you got to take my cell phone down. Give me a burner or something. Put that up there. But don't put my real stuff up there.
You played defense the other night, or you should have like really
Yeah.
like
You got crazy
you actually
fans.
have like Belgian people are really bold. Like they will literally come up to you and was like, we won, but you were terrible tonight. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, what? Like, you played this guy too long and this guy takes too many shots. And I'm like, and I'm very like calm. Like I coach like I'm talking now, like I'm very calm, monotone. And I'm like, okay, well, thank you. And you have a good night. You know, and I just politely just walk off. Now, my wife, she's the one who gets people told. Like, and I'm like, listen, I was like, if my wife comes, and she's Belgian. So I was like, if my wife comes over, you're really going to have problems. Like, she's like direct, straight to it. Like, I'll sugarcoat it, you know, and try to, you know, calm people down. My wife is like straight line shooter. Like, don't ever talk to my husband again. Like, she's like straightforward like that.
You have to put on the website, good comments, your phone number, bad comments, your wife's
my last year playing, the team was behind on my payment about 4 to 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
My wife literally walks into the game and I'm warming up before the game. She goes right for the president. She pulls me out of the layup line. This is no joke. She pulls me out of the layup line. She goes, do you see this guy? He's the best player you have. Do you want him to play tonight? She goes, give me my husband's money. Just like that. No sugarcoating, direct, and I got paid that day. So it worked.
So the money was, what you're telling us is all those times where like my money was late, it's there. They just don't feel like hitting the button to send it to you.
Yeah. I mean, most situations like that. Yeah, absolutely.
God, that's crazy. That is a great story because I feel like there's been so many moments where, you know, you're just kind of, and I know when I was in Poland, it was the same thing. I was just like, I'm not big on confrontation. You know, like I was good on the court, but like off the court, I was like, you know, I don't feel like it was like I just battled this guy, like I'm, you know, throwing elbows and stuff, and then I have to go and like have a confrontation with like the owner. I was never good at that. So I remember they weren't paying me, and I was like so fired up. But I was like in front of the mirror, like, what do you say? Like, what am I going to do? And like most people would be like, give me my fucking money. I was like, excuse me, sir. I was like such a dork because I was just not good with confrontation. But man, that money, it's elusive sometimes. You just they forget to press those buttons.
Yeah, and you know, it helps with my wife because she speaks 4 languages.
Yeah.
So, you know, anytime you confront people, they automatically stop speaking English. Like they can't speak English anymore.
Yeah.
And then my wife was like, I can say it in 4 languages. Give me my husband's money. Like she's like direct like that. And the funniest thing that I think I've ever witnessed, and I won't say his name because he's a college D1 assistant now.
Oh.
And and the team released him. And they owed him like a 2-month salary. So he wouldn't leave the apartment. And he literally showed up to every game that the team was playing, sat on the front row and cheered for the other team. It was like the most comical thing I had ever seen. And we were looking at like, do you see him cheering for us? Like we were playing against his team and he would like call out the plays from his team. Like, here comes the baseline stagger. Here comes like he's helping us as the team was playing, and he became so disruptive that they finally paid him just to get him out of the country. It was like the wildest thing I'd ever seen.
Kevin is so shocked that he's frozen.
I think we lost Kevin.
No,
yeah.
We lost the host.
That is crazy, though, that he was calling out plays. You got to think, like, I don't know. I guess you don't have that problem in, like, pro sports or whatever. Or, you know, I don't know. I guess, like, even in baseball, right? That was just in the headlines recently, the signal stealing stuff that's going on. I guess it happens to a certain degree. But I guess to a certain point, like you have to get rid of that guy. Like, how do you play?
Right. And he refused to get out of the apartment. He refused to give back the car. I mean, he was basically holding all the leverage. And literally week after week, I think he was here for like a month extra. And he was just basically sitting on the front row cheering and calling out the plays. It was really hilarious.
That is nuts.
He's got a lot of nuts for that too, because the fans over there. I'm sure you hear somebody yelling your team's plays out. I'm sure with how they act over there.
Right.
I'm surprised they didn't carry him out of the stadium or anything.
Well, they tried, and he was basically like, "I'll sue you. You can't kick me out." And he was like a fan favorite. He had played for that club for like 2 years, so the fans really appreciate him, and they thought he was basically there cheering the team on, but no, he was doing the complete opposite. He was sabotaging.
Crazy. Listen, while we try and get Kevin back, Ronnie, you want to tell us a little bit about your basketball camp? I seen like you run a pretty heavy basketball camp and what that's all about.
Yeah, I grew up in Fed, Alabama, and that's about 45 miles north of the University of Alabama. So you can imagine it's football crazy. And basically, I run a camp, 2 camps every summer, basically to try to give back to the kids, in my hometown. To basically advance the game of basketball and, get kids to, really enjoy being in the off season. And, I've done it for, I think this would be my 17th year doing the camp. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but I really enjoy it. And the interesting thing is that, we have had a couple of D1 players come through the camp. We have twins, Owen and Parker Wilson. Owen and Parker Long. One is going to Youngstown State and one is at Southeast Missouri. So, to see guys, when they started coming to camp when they were like 6 years old, and now you see them playing Division I basketball, it really makes me, super proud, to see those guys. And, we've been doing it long enough where now the kids who came to the camp are actually working the camp. They're counselors now. So, it makes you feel old in one sense, but proud in another that, you see them grow up and, just to see them change year after year is really cool. But I really enjoy it. And, I get to come home. I'm usually home for about 6 weeks in the summer. So I'm involved with that. So it's a lot of fun.
I can definitely connect. Michaela up there was a student of mine in, what was that, 2016?
I graduated from Royal West in 2015.
It was 2015. Michaela was a student of mine, and now she's helping us produce the show. And she's getting her master's degree. And, I can totally understand feeling proud of someone that you taught and helped to in some small way.
Absolutely.
I see we got Kev. Kev, you there, brother?
Yeah, sorry. I have no idea. Listen, what? Like, you would think this wouldn't happen, but for some reason, I'm just sitting there and my internet completely cut out. So I was listening to the story, and all of a sudden it was just like started getting glitchy. And then I got like the worst screen of all, which is me.
Happening again, yeah.
There must be. Remember the airplane that was flying over my head earlier? Can you hear me?
Dude, we've been talking about this for a year. We got to just get you better internet. You there, Kevin?
I updated it too. Hold on. I updated that. It was just it's just not working. Hold on, let me see if this
service provider, bro.
Here, let me into I just logged into the other thing.
I was gonna tell John to have the Kane music playing when you popped back in.
All right, there he goes. All right, so maybe this is Kevin's computer. So, Ronnie, we were talking about this pre-show. We're thinking about people your my age, Kev's age. We grew up watching professional wrestling. Did you watch some professional, some WWF, WCW back in the 90s?
Listen, I'm we're all around the same age, but I grew up down south, with Ric Flair. Like, I remember my mom took me to see Ric Flair when I was 8 years old, and he wrestled Tommy Wildfire Rich.
Okay.
And I was like the biggest Tommy Rich fan you could find. And it was at a National Guard armory with about, capacity 400 people. It might have been 2,000 people in there, right? This is deep South Alabama, right? The doors of the barn are open. It's hot. I'm sweaty. Waited all night to watch the match. Ric Flair comes out in his robe and his music. And I'm like, that's who I want to be. Like, Tommy Rich was no more important to me. It was about Ric Flair. And Ric Flair beat the crap out of Tommy Rich, and I thought it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. And I was hooked from there, from the Bullet to, WWE, WWF, all that with The Rock and DX and, all that stuff. I just loved it. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, do you want to should we quiz them? What do you think?
Yeah, we get. So I feel like because we're very similar. Like, listen, we were talking earlier. Like, they have on A&E now. They have all these biographies of old stars. So I watched like the Macho Man one, the Andre the Giant, the Hogan one, the what was the last one? Shawn Michaels. So they're like, it's bringing me back to my level of wrestling that's just hasn't been there as much. And we were talking, Cam's younger, so we're like, him and Michaela kind of went through that John Cena era, so they were into that, and I kind of was too. But I feel like now I've lost. I just don't have that same connection. There's just too much going on. There's like Next and stuff, so I haven't watched it. But yeah, like we're like let's see if any of our guests know some of these wrestling songs. But I feel like you have such a good history of it that I think you'll know these songs.
Oh, and that's a lot of pressure.
But I feel like John's going to throw a curveball and just start throwing different songs, because I feel like I was listening to some the other night, and I was like, I don't think I know this. As long as they're like that Attitude Era or like WCW era, I would be good. All right, go ahead, John. Throw them our way.
Let's see. Which one did I want to do?
That's a lot of choices.
Well, let's see if he gets this one, because I had this one preloaded up. Here we go.
That's Undertaker, right?
Close.
No. Kane?
Yes.
Kane, okay. All right.
All right, that was good. All right.
What else you got, John? I'm like intrigued now. I feel like you had a few others pulled up, and now I'm like, oh shit.
I have a couple other pulled up. Let's try this one. I remember this.
There's a lot of cowbell in that one.
What's that?
There's a lot of cowbell. So I feel like there's a wrestler from the 80s who used to come down with a cowbell, but I can't remember who it is.
I'll give you a hint. It's a tag team.
There's been a lot of Bushwhackers jokes going on because the Phillies have this guy Luke Williams, and one of the Bushwhackers is Luke Williams. So I've been dealing with a lot of Bushwhacker jokes, but it's not the Bushwhackers. It's like
that's what it says here. It's the Bushwhackers.
That was is it really? I feel like the Bushwhackers was like, oh, and they'd come out like going like this.
Yeah, the whole thing,
yeah.
Right?
Was that the music? I feel like there was like there was guys who came out in overalls. I can't remember who they were though.
I don't know.
All right, give me another one.
All right, let's see. Let me go. I know I have this one actually on my
on your playlist.
On my laptop.
This is on my regular playlist. Listen to when I'm driving to school.
Here we go.
1, 2, is this on? Yo, Jimmy, hit me with that Triple H.
This is a good song no matter what, too.
Did you get this one, Kev?
Oh, well, they say this one. As soon as I started hearing it, I was like, they say Triple H in the beginning.
Yeah.
But now I actually wondering if they because that sounds like the same guy who sang like the DX theme too. I wonder if it's the same guy.
It's all the same. Yeah, it's Jim something. Jim Johnson, I think his name is.
Really?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's impressive. Cam, you're wrestling now. I feel like there's a lot of wrestling knowledge getting thrown around. We're gonna change so the 5 of us are gonna start a new podcast, and it's all gonna be wrestling. Like no more basketball. Whatever, overseas basketball. Nope, we're only 80s, 90s wrestling.
All right.
You have one more for us?
I got one more for you.
One more. Let's go.
This was a favorite of mine. And he died a few years ago. I remember. Let's see if you guys get this one.
I feel like there's like 3 wrestlers who died, and I'm like, okay, it's one of them. Oh yeah.
This is like the shitty album. Did you get this one? Ronnie, do you know this one?
No, I don't know that one.
Should I come in for the steal?
Go ahead, brother.
Roddy Piper?
Roddy Piper.
With the bagpipes, yeah.
Yes,
That's true.
the bagpipes.
Nah.
All right, let's do one more.
Oh, boy.
Actually.
Roddy, what time is it right now where you are?
It's 2:20 in the morning.
Hey, Roddy, let's just like screw around with some wrestling stuff real quick. He's like, all right.
Now, I will say this. When I was in college, all right, I graduated in 2001. And, usually, and it is so strange because usually basketball and baseball players get along so well.
It's so true.
Our baseball team and our basketball team, we were really tight. And we all gathered in one room to watch wrestling. And literally every guy on the basketball and baseball team, when Rob Van Dam would come out to Pantera, everybody would lose their minds. Like, that was like the greatest intro. Like, literally everybody would stand up and they start doing this. It was like the coolest thing ever. Like I think for him, that was like the coolest intro music ever. Like, everybody was Pantera fan, and then Rob Van Dam comes out. It was great.
Ronnie, I have a great story. I know it's 2:15 in the morning. So when I was playing, I loved Rob Van Dam, and I thought it would be funny when I was in the D League to get one time when I got fouled, I like got up and I was like, and went like that, and like the fans were just like, what the like they all thought I was like such a jerk that I was like an arrogant, like pointing at my name. I was like, no, I was doing the Rob Van Dam. But there was like, I had fans being like, wow, that was like really, were you like being rude to the other team? I was like, no, I was doing Rob Van Dam. They're like, oh, I didn't get that. Like, you talked about like the bold, there was like a lot of that I was getting at that time. I was like, all right, well, we're going to put that one away. Although Joel Embiid's doing the like DX stuff and Triple H is coming out and ringing the bell. Rob Van Dam wasn't coming to a Rona Dazzle game, that's for sure. He's like, oh.
It's funny you say that because I had a teammate several years back, and he actually still lives in Belgium also. His name is Odell Hodge. They retired. He played at Old Dominion, and they retired his jersey. And Odell is like 6'10", and he's probably like 280 when we played. And he wore a headband that said Big O. Literally, I'm not kidding. It said Big O across the front. And every time he would score, he would like, celebrate, pump his fists and do all kind of stuff. So he hit a shot at the buzzer. We win a game, and we're going crazy, and they're booing him. And literally for 2 minutes, he does the Hogan ear to every part of the gym. And all the Americans on the team, we were just like literally dying. And our coach was like, what is that? He wants him to get louder. I'm like, it would take us a month to explain that to you. But he was like doing like this, like even, and the more they booed, the more he did it. And it was like great. Like, so he took off his headband, he throws it in the crowd. It was really fun to see that.
I love that. I love this has really turned into like such a good time with the wrestling and everything like that. Ronnie, we're not going to keep you up any later. I know it's been a long night, but we really thank you so much for joining us from Belgium. We'll have to, be in touch. This was a lot of fun. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it really much. Thanks.
It was awesome. Thank you so much, Ronnie.
Thanks a lot, guys. See you.
See you. Great times, guys. That was cool. And I will say this was awesome because I got cut out and I was like, oh shit. And it was the first time I've ever, we're fucking, it's like even though it's shit goes wrong a lot, was what I'm trying to say. So this is the first time when shit went wrong that I felt so confident. I was like, keep it going. Like, I'll be back on when I can. And and it was like, boom. Like, the show just kept on rolling, which is just what a good team does. So I think that's just like we said, we're a team, and this was a great team effort. And I thought that was a lot of fun. I think Ronnie's hilarious. I think it was a great interview. And I can't believe it was 2:15 in the morning. He's just like listening to wrestling music with us.
I have to say, my like social media apps, because I'm like scrolling along, posting stuff as we're recording. They're definitely listening, because I just scrolled past a meme and someone photoshopped Stone Cold Steve Harvey.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
That showed up on my feed. So now, like, all night I'm gonna be getting wrestling
wrestling references.
Literally out of nowhere, I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, I love the wrestling aspect of it. Yeah, this is something we'll have to do every show. Just start randomly just playing wrestling music and just see if people are like, what the fuck? Or if they're like, oh yeah.
Just on me last week.
Yeah, that was you were the initial test. Macho Man.
No more drinking during the podcast for me. Kind
of. We keep saying that though, Michaela.
Yeah.
After the Christmas episode.
I was very close tonight I was just like, all right, I'm going to pop a drink. I'm going to grab a drink. And I like came down and was checking, and when I turned it on, like I was like, okay, let me just go check and I'll make a drink. And you guys were already on. I was like, screw it. I'll just get it later. But yeah, that was drinking and podcasting are two things that definitely should go together at all times.
We'll have to send you some Capri Suns or something.
I got water or something, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry.
You gotta go pre-made screwdriver. That's where it's at.
What do they call them? Shirley Temple?
Shirley Temple?
Like a 15-year-old white girl.
Let me tell you, man, all the DJ jobs I do, there's always the Shirley Temples going around, man.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's like once one, like the first, everyone's always scared to ask for them, but then once one person does, the entire venue wants one, and they're just putting it in buckets.
Some of the venues that I DJ at on a regular basis, they just put pictures of that shit out because they just know that's where the night's going. like instead of just making one at a time, they're just like, here's like 8 pictures of this shit.
This entire bag of, what are they called, Maraschino cherries?
I love that.
In there. We'll get a picture of that shit at the wedding. We'll do that too.
Oh, I love it. Picture of, yep. Hells yeah. Well, this has been fun, guys. Thanks so much to Ronnie McCollum for joining us all the way from Belgium in the middle of the night. Thanks to obviously a great team, John, Michaela, Cam, for continuing to do all you do and helping produce. And thank you guys all for listening and tuning in every week and making the show what it is. The growth that we're seeing, it's been a lot of fun. The followers are jumping, and the promos are popping. It's awesome. So keep listening. It's going to get better and better. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
That's why I pick and choose. I don't get confused. I got a small circle. I'm not with different crews. We walk the same path, but got on different shoes. Live in the same building, but we got different views. I got a couple cars I never get to use. Don't like my women single. I like my chicks in twos. And these days, all the girls is down the road. I hit the strip club and all them bitches find a pole. Plus, I've been sipping soda. This moving kinda slow. Just tell my girl to tell a friend that it's time to go. Now tell me how you love it. You know you at the top and only heaven's right above it. We own. It's young money, motherfucker. If you ain't running with it, run from it, motherfucker. Alright, now somebody show some money in this bitch. And I got my bees with me like some honey in this bitch. You dig? I got my gun in my boot purse and I don't bust back because I shoot first. Meet me on the fresh train. Yes, I'm in the building. You just on the list of guest names. And all of my riders do not give a X Games. Guns turn you boys into sex change. And I smoke till I got chest pains. And you niggas know I rep my gang like Jesse James. Women
all possessive, and they wanna possess Wayne. I've been fly so long I fell asleep on the plane. Skinny pants and some Vans. Call me Triple A, get my advance in advance. Amen. As the world spinning, dance in my hands. Life is a beach, I'm just playing in the sand. Wake up and smell a. You can't see me, but never overlook me. I'm on the paper trail, it ain't no telling where it took me.